Good morning and welcome to Veterans Heartbeat on the Pulse of the Veteran, where we discuss issues of health, happiness, opportunity, and well-being of interest to the veteran community, their families, and the community who honors them.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Veterans Heartbeat, brought to you by River, the Rural Institute for Veterans Education and Research. My name is Jason Zencraft. My co-host Ed Lisofsky is here with me, and he is the Executive Director of River. We welcome you to a weekly wide-ranging discussion of issues, events, opportunities, and needs in our veteran community. Morning, Ed. How you doing?
Morning, Jason.
We'd also like to thank our sponsor, Farside Signs. They create amazing-looking vehicle graphics that will drive traffic to your business. They are located at 1526 South Avenue West in Missoula. Follow them on the web, Instagram, and Facebook, or just stop on by.
So this morning, we've got Troy Downing on the radio with us. And as everybody out there knows, he's running for U.S. Senate. We've had Matt Rosendale, we've had Russ Fagg on, and so we're giving Troy equal time. So good morning, Troy. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for having me.
So what's the number one message you want to give to the listeners of Veterans Heartbeat?
The number one message is if we keep sending career establishment politicians to D.C., we can't expect anything different. What I think we need to do is we need to start sending more combat veterans, more businessmen, more non-establishment politicians that are going there as a service to the people, as a statesman, not as a politician. Politics shouldn't be a career. Let's send somebody that actually has solved problems in the real world and gone to war for this nation. And I am that candidate. And just to kind of build upon that a little bit, I mean, think about this. The state of Montana currently does not have a single representative who has ever been in a war zone. There's not a single person running except for me who's ever gone to war. And I think it's important, Congress can declare war. I think it's important that somebody is there that can make decisions on actual experience, not on an abstraction of what that looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like, what it's like to see a bleeding kid in the back of a helicopter. I think it's important that decisions made about national security and what we do and who we send, that we need more people that understand not only the price of freedom, but who's paying that price. And I am that person. I think that we need to give our fighting forces the tools they need to survive when we send them out to war, and we need to take care of them when they come home. That's another big part. I've been a part of the veteran community in Montana ever since I was honorably discharged. I'm a life member of the Montana VFW, and I've got friends that are Vietnam and older and Desert Storm and younger, and we're not taking care of them. We're in a state here with one of the largest populations of veterans per capita. We've got, almost 10% of our population are veterans. But as you know, Ed, we've got one of the highest levels of veteran suicides. We've got a high level of veteran unemployment, and we've got a VA that's in shambles.
The number that we have for veteran suicide in Montana is 66 per 100,000 from last year. That's wow. 1.5 times the national average.
Yeah, I mean, we have a problem, obviously.
And the biggest two contributing factors, I'm going to clue you in on a little bit of this because we just got this from Carl, so it's not a test that's out for the public, but 53% were had a factor of pain. 62% had a relational problem. So there you go.
Right. Well, obviously, we're not doing well by our veterans coming back, and we need to solve those problems. We need to figure out what the pain issues are. We need to figure out what the support issues are. We need to start dealing with the problems home, not just in our fighting forces while they're out there, but taking care of them when they come back. And some of the things that have frustrated me immensely is, and I know you're familiar with these stats, but a couple of months ago, I was up in Missoula and got these numbers from the VA.gov just about appointments scheduled in a 30-day period up there in Missoula, and it was, I think, 5,100 and change over a 30-day period. And the number of physicians listed was 2, and my understanding is one of those was a PA. And I just want to understand how anybody expects any kind of service with those kinds of numbers. It's really frustrating. I think one of the things we need to do is we need to not only send people that understand, what's going on in our fighting forces in our veteran community, but also somebody that's run a business. And I have run businesses, and I think we need to start looking at things and put private sector accountability into our government programs. One of the big frustrations that I have are so many government programs are run like government programs where there is no ownership, there is no private sector accountability, and we need to start doing that and standing up, for all government programs, but especially in taking care of our veteran community.
The other statistic that was very sobering when I was talking to Carl was the percentages of 18 to 29-year-old veterans. It's close to doubling what it was about 3 years ago.
Okay.
That's staggering.
Yes.
The other thing, you mentioned the Vietnam War veterans. I don't know if our listeners know, but there was roughly 300,000 killed in action in the Vietnam War. We are now surpassing that number of Vietnam veterans that have killed themselves by their own means. Yeah.
No, that's absolutely horrible. We're not taking care of our veterans, and we need to find solutions. And one of the things that frustrates me a lot, and this is not talking about Vietnam veterans, this is just in general, is it's so easy, and I think this is a symptom of having very limited resources, like we were talking about the number of appointments and the number of physicians trying to service those, is when you don't have time to really treat the human, is we tend to just fall back on simple solutions, which aren't really solutions. And one of the things that frustrates me the most is we're so quick at trying to solve these problems with chemistry. And I think that we're overprescribing everything from narcotics down to antidepressants and SSRIs, and we're just creating these lifetime victims rather than treating the human. We're trying to use chemistry to do that. And I think that we're doing an incredible disservice by that, and we need to really start exploring, real solutions, treating the human, not the chemistry. It's just the wrong direction for us to go, and we are creating lifetime victims rather than helping our veterans heal.
Well, we can go on for hours about the problems in the veterans community. One initiative that we got involved in with Greg Giaforte that we're kind of seeing is a positive light is veterans starting up their own small businesses.
Oh, yes.
And
Absolutely.
I know you've been involved in that. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity here in helping entrepreneurs, veteran entrepreneurs, actually build businesses. And I know there's groups coming out to Montana, like Bunker Labs. And I know that, up in Missoula, you had that Vetrepreneur conference not too long ago. And, veterans, I think, make amazing entrepreneurs, just channeling the energy and their experience and what they've gone through into creating a business and putting your head down and making it happen. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. And so what we need to do and continue to do is foster these, incubators coming to help veterans start businesses. We need to start mentoring veterans that are starting businesses and understand, what the ins and outs are, how you, capitalize something, how you build it, how you build a team, how you move forward from an idea to an actual business. So the mentorship is a huge part. Having funding sources is another part. I think that the more we foster that, it's not just good for the veteran community. It's great for the state of Montana. The more we can foster that and help veterans start their own businesses, the more that puts into the economy and starts floating all boats here. And I'm really excited to see a renewed interest in people doing that and starting not only, startup companies, which is, as part of my background. I started out as an entrepreneur in technology, utilizing that resource that is our veteran community, I think we can just do amazing things, not just for the community, but also for the state.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, but it's hard for a lot of these veterans to figure out even where to go. And so that's why I agree with you that these incubators are going to be so important for the veterans.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, there's so many groups. Some of them are national, some local. And like I just mentioned, Bunker Labs, they're doing a big event in Bozeman at the end of the month. There's another group that I've been involved with called Veterati, and they're national, and they basically put veterans together with mentors. And so they find business leaders across the country in all kinds of different industries. And any veteran can go onto their website and sign up, and they'll hook them up with these phone calls with these business leaders and subject area experts to just help mentor them from their military career into a civilian career. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity out there, and I think that opportunity is going to continue to grow.
So let's move on from that to another area that I'm kind of curious about, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, and that is, where do we go with our leadership within Montana to promote the veterans and take advantage? Not we're not looking for ways to service the veterans, because every veteran I know wants to be a part of a solution. So how do we channel that? Do you have any ideas?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, first of all, just in, what is the current VA structure? I mean, that just, we need private sector accountability. We need to have ownership of that. And that starts at the, upper levels. I mean, I'm sure I know there are a lot of great people that work within there, but we need to have ownership and accountability in that system. But in terms of the opportunities for our veteran communities, I mean, Montana is obviously a very, the people of Montana are very pro-military, pro-veteran. And I think a lot of this has been springing up from the private sector and will continue to spring up from the private sector. And I think that opportunity is going to continue to grow as you start to see more and more organizations that are putting out programs to help veterans in this state that are privately funded. And I think that opportunity is amazing. I think that'll continue to go and continue to grow. And as I've always said, in my whole campaign is I really want the government out of our way. And I think that in terms of opportunities for veterans, the private sector is going to continue creating those opportunities, just like the examples I already told you with incubators and mentorship programs. And there's nonprofits out here that are just helping veterans that have fallen into holes of substance abuse or alcohol abuse or just depression, and using these programs like Heroes and Horses, where they just take them out for a couple of months in teams and start just kicking their butts and getting them off the couch and getting them to actually, be part of something bigger. And I just see that as being, tremendously effective at creating growth and getting them out of these, bad situations that a lot of us find ourselves into, and giving them the opportunity to actually get past that and move on and learn a skill and get back to what I think is the most important, is that sense of importance and belonging that you had in your military career that a lot of us don't find, post-military. And I think that's important, having, doing something meaningful and being part of a team and part of, doing something other than, trying to recreate that sense of belonging and importance that you had during your career, and recreating that as in your civilian career. And I think that's tremendously important, because you can't have that feeling of importance and belonging and structure and just go sit on a couch and not expect to have problems. You need something that recreates that in your civilian life. And I think a lot of that opportunity is going to come up, in the private sector.
Now I'm going to address another issue. And that is the bureaucrats take ownership, and they take away the spirit of being able to go out there and create these things that you're talking about. And I'm going to kind of go into your area a little bit, and I'm going to explain something that happened to us in New Zealand, okay?
Okay.
I arranged I personally paid for us to go fishing in New Zealand. So we had to get our fishing licenses, and I know I want to address that one in a minute, but the technology on the internet didn't work to where we could get our licenses. So the guide was like, okay, we'll go get them at lunch. Not a problem. We'll take you out. I don't want to screw you over. You've flown a long ways. So we were good with that. We went. We did some great fishing. Jason got some awesome fish. Fez, he almost got skunked, and at the end of the day, he nailed all of us. He got the biggest fish.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was only 5 inches.
Yeah, right.
I'm not
Okay.
I'm not going to give Fez any credit. Anyway, no, it was great. But we had the fishing game come up while we were eating, and we were getting ready to go do our licenses, and we explained the problem to him, and he was like, yeah, okay, well, tell your guide to go up here and do this and do that. And we went up and bought our licenses, and instead of nailing us and fining us and doing all this other things, the bureaucrats down there in New Zealand felt like it was their job to be your host.
Right.
And I know you got in trouble with the Fish and Game with your hunting license, and I know a lot of people are making a big deal out of that. Here's your opportunity to kind of explain that one.
Well, that was an attack. They came after me in a way that they thought that would hurt me. They saw me as being a threat to the status quo, a threat to the establishment. They saw that early on, and they decided to hurt me in a way that they thought would resonate and get in the way of me getting elected. And for example, I've never had a problem my entire life, and hunting and fishing has been a big part of my life forever. And all of a sudden, I file paperwork to run for office, and I get a game warden come up and accuse me of buying inappropriate licenses. It's just ridiculous. The reality of it is I'm not guilty. I did exactly the same thing that everybody else listening to this radio program did. I left my Montana home and my Montana registered card, used my Montana driver's license to buy my Montana fishing license. And the thought that there was anything wrong there is just ridiculous. This is where I vote. This is where I pay taxes. This is my home. And they're going to try hitting that. And it's interesting because one of the things that came up recently, I'm sure you're aware of this, I got a call a couple of months ago from Michael Flynn, from Lieutenant General Flynn, and he wanted to help with my campaign. And he basically said, "Hey, you're the one who's going to win this primary. You're the one who can beat Tester. We need to clean up Washington, D.C., and we need to start sending more veterans there. And you're the guy. How can I help you?" And he said, I'm happy to be in the foreground, or I can help you in the background. You tell me what. And, what my thought on that is, if we don't stand together, if we allow all this stuff that has nothing to do with us, if we allow them to marginalize us and try to, paint these pictures of somebody that we're not to take us down, then really who are we? If we can't stand next to our own, then who are we? And so this is a prime example of somebody trying to marginalize me, and even just the basic thoughts of this, of me trying to save a couple of dollars on a fishing license and doing something different than anybody else in the face of the fact that I spend tens of thousands of dollars having other people come to Montana and fish through my my veteran programs of using fly fishing as therapy for wounded veterans. I mean, the whole thing is just ridiculous, and we're going to fight this. I'm not guilty. We're going to win, and I'm just going to stand up to them trying to take me down because they're afraid of the thought of a non-politician, combat veteran, and businessman going to D.C.
I didn't know how to address it, but there's the cards on the table, folks. I mean, Trump talks about a swamp in D.C. I think there's a swamp in Montana.
There is. The deep state's not just in D.C. It's in Helena. It's here. And if we don't stand together and if we allow that kind of stuff to bring down our own, then really who are we? We need to stand up. We need to fight. The reality of it is, like I said, even one newspaper printed some article that I had the audacity to use my Montana driver's license to get my Montana fishing license. I'm thinking, what would you have done? The whole thing is ludicrous.
Well, you know that Rivers had its issues with the deep state, still have, and you've been helping as much as you can, and I appreciate that.
But we got to stand together. We got to make sure we do the right thing, and we have to support those who are fighting the good fight, and I'm happy to do that.
Well, Troy, it's been an interesting morning with you. We're coming to the end of the show, so let's see what you got to say here. Free mic.
Well, this is an important race. Obviously, Jon Tester does not represent Montana, does not represent America. He's bad for business. He's bad for our veterans. He campaigns hard as being an advocate for the veterans, and clearly that's not true. He needs to go. We have an opportunity here. And I am not a politician. I'm the only one in this primary who's not a professional career politician. And I think that's an important point. We need to send less politicians, less people going into this as a career, and more statesmen that are doing this as a service. Now, I've gone to war. I'm a combat veteran. I think that's important. Like I mentioned before, we don't have a single person representing or running to represent Montana who's ever been to war. And I think it's important that we have somebody doing that, and that person is me. And Jon Tester campaigns very hard as being an advocate for the veterans, and like your listeners know, and all of the veteran community that I am in touch with know, he is not helping the veterans. The other part of this, I'm the only one that has created businesses in multiple industries. You know, I've been in technology, I've been in education, I've been in commercial real estate. I built a national insurance company from the ground up, and we now insure the third largest storage company in the world through our program. I have a manufacturing company in the U.S. that makes athletic apparel, and we export to all over the country, to Europe, to Asia. So I'm the only candidate that's created jobs in multiple industries, who has mentored other people, including veterans, creating their own businesses, who has made payrolls, who knows how to solve problems in the private sector. I think one of the issues that we have right now is we have too many career politicians. I am a term limit fan. I think that we need to start sending people from our community that are relevant, who have run businesses, created jobs, served in the military, send them to do the work of the people and send them home. I am that candidate. This primary coming up on June 5th, it's really important, and I would love the support of your listeners. You can go to troydowning.com to learn more. Let's get together, and as I said before, you know, if we stand together and stand up for our own, we can make amazing things happen. Jon Tester is not good for Montana, not good for the United States of America. Let's send a combat veteran and a businessman to start taking this back, and that's Troy Downing.
Well, thank you, Troy. I look forward to seeing how the primaries come out.
Jon Tester is vulnerable, and I think the way you send him home, you send a combat veteran and a businessman. So I appreciate the support of your listeners. More information, just go to troydowning.com.
As we have stated before to our listeners, we don't endorse candidates. We don't endorse parties. We endorse the idea that veterans have to come together and become the solution to the problems in the veteran world.
So thank you very much for listening to Veterans Heartbeat. We'd not be able to bring it to you without all the support of the listeners. And thank you again to Farside Signs for sponsoring the show. If you do need a unique vehicle design, swing on by and check them out. Also, thank you to our main sponsor, River. River has an array of services such as veterans-focused education, a vestibular disorder clinic, and now non-pharmaceutical treatments for pain, anxiety, and depression. Check them out on Facebook or on the web at riverofchange.org. Lastly, we'd like to show our appreciation to all of our veterans. Thank you for serving our country and keeping it safe.